Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav and we'll be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Kuf Chav Vav Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn the halachas of the Daled Minim. We pick up today in the middle of Siman Taf Reish Nun Aleph. Actually, I believe we are going to complete. Yes, Mirz Hashem, we will complete Siman Taf Reish Nun Aleph today. We pick up all the way at the end of Sif Yud Beis on Kuf Chav Hey Amid Beis, bottom line, in middle of the words of the Ramah. Now, before I read the Ramah, just for proper context, let me just give you a synopsis of Sif Yud Beis. So in Sif Yud Beis, first the Mechaber told us the halacha that the arba minim are ma'akvin zeh ezeh. In order to be yotze the mitzvah of the Daled Minim, you have to have all four of the Daled Minim, and therefore the Mechaber told us if you're missing one, you cannot make a bracha on the other ones, because you're not going to be yotze the mitzvah. So you can't make a bracha. To be yotze the mitzvah, you need all four. However, said the Mechaber, if you are stuck in a situation where you are missing one or more of the Daled Minim, you still take hold of the minim that you have as a zecher. You have to have a zecher for the fact to the mitzvah, that the mitzvah should not be forgotten. On that note, I'm going to read a biur halacha. The biur halacha here on Kuf Chav Hey Amid Beis, Dibra Hamaschil, Aval Noitlan Lezecher Ba'alma. The Mechaber said you should take the minim that you have as a zecher to the mitzvah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, V'tzarech lizaher. In such a case, where you are taking some of the Daled Minim as a zecher to the mitzvah, you have to take care shelo yechavein l'shem mitzvah, that when you do that lekicha, when you take, let's say you don't have an esrog, so you take the lulav bundle, the lulav hadassah and the aravas, says the Chavetz Chaim here, you should have kavana that you're not being mekayim the mitzvah. You're not doing this l'shem mitzvah. The yesh bazeh mishum bal tigra. Because if you were to have kavanah that you want to be yotze the mitzvah, you would be over on the lav of Bal Tigra. We know that there's one lav of Bal Tosif. You're not allowed to add on to the mitzvahs. And there's another lav of Bal Tigra. You're not allowed to take something away from the mitzvah. So the mitzvah is Daled Minim. If you try to accomplish the mitzvah with Gimel Minim, you would be over the lav of Bal Tigra. K'moshe kasav hataz b'sif katan yud zayin. The Chavetz Chaim tells us that this is actually a beferish sifri re'ei ayin sham. Alchein mashakasav adaz davar chadash. The Taz writes a big chiddush. Da'afilu be'eshehu noitloi lahalulav acher shekvar kiyam ha'mitzvah v'rak mishum chibuv mitzvah ba'alma. The Taz says another halacha. The Taz says, how about if you went to davening, you made the bracha on the lulav and the esrog, you made the na'anuim by Hallel, you did Hashanas, now you go home and you pick up the lulav and esrog, not to be mekayim the mitzvah, but just because of the chavivus of the mitzvah. We saw in the Gemara, the Anshe Yerushalayim had the minig that they always walked around with the lulav and esrog. The Taz says a chiddush that even in that case, Gam oz yizar likach dafka kol arba minim shaloi legrai mimenu v'lo lahaisif alav kadei shalo yavar al bal taisif o bal tigra. The Taz says that even in that case, you should make sure that if you want to pick up the Daled Minim because of the chavivus hamitzvahs, you should make sure to pick up all of the minim. You shouldn't just pick up your lulav because of the chavivus of the mitzvah, because again, you have a problem of bal tigra. On that, he sigu alav kal ha'achrayim. The achrayim take issue with that Taz, and at the end here, the biur halacha says, "V'daitam." Their opinion is, "Kevin shekvar kiyam ha'mitzvah." Since you were already yotze the mitzvah, ain't shaykh bazeh bal tosif u'bal tigra. Because the fact that you're picking up the lulav bundle later in the day is not to be mekayim the mitzvah. It's only because of chavivus of the mitzvah. In that case, there's certainly no problem of bal tigra. But in a case where you're not being yotze the mitzvah, you don't have all four minim, you're missing the esrog. So when you go to pick up the lulav bundle, if you do it l'shem mitzvah, that would be a problem of bal tigra. Therefore, the Chavetz Chaim said, in such a case, yes, you would take the lulav bundle as a zecher ba'alma, but you should have kavanah that you're not doing it l'shem mitzvah. Okay, then the Mechaber told us, what happens if you have all of the Daled Minim? So you have the lulav, the hadassim, the aravas, and the esrog, but you don't have a lulav bundle. You have a lulav in front of you on the table, you have 3 hadassim, you have 2 aravas, and you have an esrig. The Mechaber told us you could make a bracha, asher kedishanu b'mitzvayis v'tzivano on the tilas lulav. Have in mind that that bracha should cover all 4 of the daled minim, and then pick up the lulav, put it down, pick up the hadassim, put them down, pick up the aravas, put them down, pick up the esrig, put it down, and you would be yotzeh the mitzvah. And the Mishnah Berurah explained to us, the reason for that is very simple. The mitzvah is to take all 4 of the daled minim. The fact that we make a bundle out of the lulav, the hadassim, and the aravas is really zakeli va'anveyu. It's isna'il lefan of b'mitzvahs. It's mishum noi mitzvah. But it's not a requirement. We learned that beferish. We said, the Mechaber told us beferish, that the eged is not ma'akiv. Okay, for some reason I'm not finding. Oh yeah, here it is. It's on Kuf Chav Gimel Lamed Aleph, all the way in the beginning of Siman Taf Reish Nun Aleph. Umitzvah la'agdam bekesher gamor, but it's not liikuva. It's not liikuva. Yeah, so it's only hisnar lefan of b'mitzvahs. That's all it is. Okay. Yeah, you can see that on Kuf Chav Gimel Lamed Aleph Mishnah Berurah Eis Cotton Zion. So you could be yotzeh the mitzvah. Again, the point that I want to be careful to make is that the Mechaber taught us you could be mekayim the mitzvah by picking up the daled minim one at a time. So you would make the bracha al netilas lulav. You would have kavanah that bracha goes on all 4 of the minim, and you would pick them up one at a time. And you could be yotzeh the mitzvah. And the Mishnah Berurah told us that the Rabbah says that they all have to be in front of you. The Mishnah Berurah said that means that they have to be close to you so that you don't have to be mafsik. You make the bracha on the tilas lulav, you want to be able to pick up one right after the other. Now, finally, we get to the bottom line of Kuf Chav Hey Amud Beis, where we're holding the bottom line, v'imsach beinehem, says the Ramah. Let's say you're trying to be yotzeh the mitzvah in this fashion, where you're going to pick up each one of the daled minim on its own. So you're making the bracha of Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvahs of Tzivanu on the tilas lulav. You had in mind that it should go on all of the minim. Then you picked up the lulav, and after you picked up the lulav, you put it down. And before you picked up the hadassim, you got into a conversation with somebody. So now you are mafsik b'dibur. You made a hefsik. You made a bracha. You were yotzeh the mitzvah yotzeh the mitzvah, but you picked up one of the minim, and now you are mafsik, and you didn't pick up the other minim. What do you do then? Says the Ramah, imsach beinehem, if you spoke in between the picking up of the various minim, tzarich levarech al kol echad bifnei atzmai. Now you're going to have to make a new bracha to cover the minim that you did not yet pick up after your hefsik, after you were mafsik b'dibur, after you spoke. Says the Mishnah Berurah, bottom line, on Kuf Chav Hey Amud Beis, Eis Kot Nun Vav, al kol echad b'fnei atzmai. Dahainu, what does this mean? Says the Chavetz Chaim, al hadas, al netilas eitz avos. So again, you made a bracha of al netilas lulav. You picked up the lulav, you put it down, and now you spoke. Now you still have to pick up the rest of the daled minim in order to be yotzeh the mitzvah. You only picked up one min so far. But the bracha that you made of al netilas lulav cannot cover the rest of the minim because you are mafsik between the bracha and the mitzvah. You spoke between when you made the bracha and when you're now going to pick up the hadassim. So the hadassim, the haravas, and the esrig can no longer be covered by your bracha of al netilas lulav. So what do? Says the Mishnah Berurah, you got to make a bracha on each one, the Ramah said. What does that mean? Dahainu al hadas, al netilas eitz avos. Before you go to pick up the hadassim, you're going to make a bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvahs v'tzivanu al netilas eitz avos. Va'al arava, and now when you go to pick up the aravas, you're going to make another bracha. Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu al netilas arava. V'chein al esrig. And now when you go to pick up the esrig, Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu al netilas esrig. So again, the problem that you have over here is you made a bracha of al netilas lulav. Normally, the bracha of al netilas lulav covers all of the daled minim. Now, why is that the case? We'll speak about that in a moment. But normally, that bracha would cover all of the daled minim. Now, you have this crazy case where you did two crazy things. Number one, instead of picking up all the daled minim together, you decided you're doing one at a time, which you could be yaitza that way. Not the normal way to do it, but you could be yaitza that way. So you made a bracha on the lulav, and you took the lulav. But then you put the lulav down and you talked. So now the bracha of al netilas lulav cannot cover the other three minim. So now you got to make a bracha on each one. You pick up the hadassim al netilas eitzavos. Now you put them down, you pick up the aravas al netilas arava. You put them down, you pick up the esrik al netilas esrik. Now you picked up all four minim, you yaitza the mitzvah, and each one had a bracha. Now, before we go weiter, first of all, why is it that we make a bracha of al netilas lulav? You see now that there is a concept of a bracha on each one of the individual minim. So maybe we should always make a bracha on each one of the four minim. Also, if you're not going to make a bracha on all four of the daled minim, why don't we make a bracha al netilas daled minim? Or something, al netilas arba minim. Why do we make the bracha of al netilas lulav? Why do we only mention the lulav? And how are we yaitza covering all the other minim? So the truth is that the Gemara asks this question. This is not a strange question. The Gemara asks this question on Lam Zayin. I'm thinking right now it's on Lam Zayin and Beis. But the Gemara asks the kasha. The Gemara says. My tam loy mevarchinan ella al netilas lulav. Why is it that we only make a bracha of al netilas lulav? And the Gemara answers, Hayol v'gavaya mikulan, because it is taller than all of the other minim. Okay, so the Rashi over there says, Chashuv hu, it's the most prominent one. It's the most chashuv one. I don't think he means chashivus, that some of the mitzvah on the lulav is more chashuv than the others. Since it's gavaya mikulan, I think the word that I would use is it's the most prominent. V'nikra ha'eged al shemoi, and therefore the bundle. And he clearly doesn't mean only the bundle of the lulav hadassim, the aravas. He means the esrik as well. It's all the entire mitzvah of the daled minim as a whole is referred to by the lulav. When we say al netilas lulav, we're not talking about the lulav specifically. That's a way of referencing all of the daled minim. So in a normal case, the bracha of al netilas lulav will cover everything. If you're being yaitza the mitzvah in the normal way, where you're going to take the lulav bundle in your right hand and the esrog in your left hand, hold them together, so you make a bracha of al netilas lulav, it zikha covers all four. If you make the bracha if you try to be yaitza the mitzvah in this strange way, where you're going to pick up each one of the daled minim on its own, in that case, the Ramah is telling us, the Ramah is telling us that when you make the bracha on the lulav, since now you are going to pick up the lulav alone, there's more of a concern that you might be thinking that the bracha only covers the lulav. After all, you made a bracha al netilas lulav, and then you picked up a lulav alone, without hadassim and aravas, and certainly without an esrog. So in that case, the Ramah says, when you're trying to be yaitza the mitzvah that way, you have to have clear das. You have to have specific das, that the bracha on the lulav covers all of the daled minim. We didn't see that until now. If you're trying to be yaitza the bracha in the normal way, when you're going to take all daled minim at the same time, you don't have to have that das. It's automatic. Al netilas lulav covers all the daled minim. But when you're doing something strange, so you're going to pick up a lulav alone, in that case, maybe the bracha of al netilas lulav only goes on the lulav. So you have to have das that it goes on all four of the minim. But now, in today's case, we have a bigger problem. Now the bracha cannot go on all the four minim, because you made the bracha of al netilas lulav, and then you are mafsik. So now the bracha cannot go on the hadassim and the aravas and the esrig. So therefore, says the Ramah, and it elucidates the Mishnah Berurah, what do you have to do now? Now you have to make a bracha individually on each one of the other three minim. You got to make a bracha on the hadassim, a bracha on the aravas, and a bracha on the esrig. Now, why? Why can't you make one bracha to cover all three? The same way the lulav could cover all four, maybe you should make a bracha on the hadassim, and maybe that will cover the aravas and the esrog. The answer is no, because the only place that we have a precedent for that is by the lulav, where the Gemara says hayil v'gavai amikulan, since it's the most prominent, and Rashi says the whole mitzvah is named after the lulav. Over there we have such a concept, but we don't have such a concept by the other minim. Therefore, now you're out of bracha on the hadassim, the aravas, and the esrig. Now each one is going to require its own bracha. Now the Mishnah Berurah is going to get even more interesting. Umikal Makaim, second line down in the Mishnah Berurah of Chavav Amud Aleph, by the Ois Kat Ayin for the Shiur Tzion. Umikal Makaim, says the Mishnah Berurah, Toiv, it would be good, Sha'achar Gach Gam Kein Yachzor V'Yikachem Kulam B'Yachad. You went ahead, the truth is that always lechatchila we should do the mitzvah in the normal way. We should take all four minim together. Because there's a sheet of the Rabbeinu Tam who holds that you're not yotzei the mitzvah in this way that the Mechaber says, taking one at a time. So it's certainly not lechatchila to do this. So, says the Mishnah Berurah, I'm telling you, if you took the lulav and you made a bracha on the lulav, and then you were mafsik, I'm telling you now you should make individual brachas on the other three. The Mishnah Berurah says, really, the best thing to do is pick up the other three that you left out, hold them together with the lulav, and take everything at one time. And what bracha do you make? The Mishnah Berurah does not say what bracha you should make if you do that. So for that, interestingly enough, we have to look at Shiur Tzion Ois Kat Ayin Aleph, where the Chofetz Chaim says, if you did do that, ulefi zeh, yitztarich levarech al netilas hadas va'arava ve'esrig bebracha achas. You made a bracha, shekedishanim mitzvaysev v'zivanu al netilas lulav, you were holding the lulav. You put the lulav down, you are mafsik. Now you have hadassim, aravas, and esrig. The approach that the Mishnah Berurah tells us in the Mishnah Berurah at first is now make three individual brachas. Make a bracha on the hadassim, hold the hadassim, put them down. Make a bracha on the aravas, hold the aravas, put them down. Make a bracha on the esrig, hold the esrig, put it down. Then the Mishnah Berurah says, better take all three, take the hadassim, the aravas, and the esrig, and hold them together with the lulav. And says the Chofetz Chaim in the Shiur Tzion, and what bracha would you make? Now you would make one unified bracha. Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysev v'tzivanu al netilas eitz avos ve'aravos ve'esrig. Okay, now you're not going to mention the lulav because the Chofetz Chaim says here in the Shiur Tzion, v'al netilas lulav lo yuchal levarech. You can't mention the lulav because you already made a bracha on the lulav. And you already held the lulav. So you're not going to make a bracha on the lulav. Okay. In the end, the Shiur Tzion says, V'tzarech iyun l'maisa. He's not so sure about this. He says, Tzarech iyun l'maisa. So, based on the hachra that we have in the Mishnah Berurah, it sounds like the thing to do would be to make three individual brachas and pick them up one at a time, and then just hold them all together, I guess, without a bracha. Okay, now the Mishnah Berurah comes to another interesting case. In birech al halulav, let's say you made a bracha, asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysev v'tzivanu al netilas lulav, and you're holding your lulav and your esrig. V'achar bracha ra'ah, and after you made the bracha, you see shaloi haya by hadas. You don't have three hadasim. You made the bracha. You make your nanuim, you look at your lulav, and you say, wait a second, I don't have three hadas in here, I have one hadas. Or, he says, arava, or you're missing your aravas. You spaced out, you made a bracha, and you forgot that you took out your aravas the night before because all the leaves were falling off your aravas, and you intended on putting in new aravas in the morning, and you forgot to put in the aravas. So you made a bracha on your daled minim, and you had no aravas. Or you realize when you look at your lulav after you already made the bracha that your hadassim are puzzle or your aravas are puzzle, or your lulav is puzzle. Aimuhu pachim, or they got put in upside down, which is also puzzle because you have to take them derech gidulan. So basically, you made a bracha of Asher Kiddushanim Mitzvayis of Sivanu al Netilas Lulav, and then you realized either you're missing one of the Daled Minim, or one of the Daled Minim that you have are actually puzzle. So again, you're out one of the Daled Minim. So the Mishnah Berurah says like this: depends. If you happen to have, let's say you were missing the hadasim, and now you have another set of 3 hadasim, or you were missing the aravas, but you have another 2 aravas. And they're readily available to you. They're very close by. You don't have to make a hefsek. You're not going to make a significant hefsek over here. So you made the bracha, and then you realized, whoops, I don't have aravas, but your aravas are right here in the lulav bag. So all you got to do is grab the aravas and put them in the lulav. You're not going to have any kind of significant hefsek over here. In that case, what's the halacha, says the Mishnah Berurah? Yikach arbaton biyachad. So now take the new aravas, put them in, hold all 4 of the minim together, vivarech al oisay min shahaya nechsar, and make an individual bracha on the min that you are missing. Tahainu, for example, let's say in my case, you made the bracha and then you realized you had no aravas, but you have 2 fresh aravas right here in your lulav bag. So says the Mishnah Berurah, what do? Grab the new aravas, put them in, hold all 4 of the minim, and make a bracha on the aravas. Yavarach al netilas arava. Make a bracha Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvayis of Sivanu al netilas arava. Al hadas, if it was the hadasim that you were missing, al netilas eitz avos. And if this happens to happen on the first day, there's another bracha you have to make. You have to make another shehecheyanu, because your first shehecheyanu, that covered the fact that you took 3 of the minim, but it didn't cover the 4th min, b'shvel hanechsar. Aval ala lulav yatsa. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, pay attention to what I'm telling you here. I'm telling you here that you only have to make a new bracha to cover the min that was either missing or puzzle. But the bracha that you made on everything else with the al netilas lulav, that was okay. Because you had all 4 minim readily available to you. So this is very complicated. But let's go over again what the Mishnah Berurah just said. What happened over here? Well, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it to one case, which is that the problem was with the aravas. You took your lulav, you took your esrig, you made Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvayis of Sivanu al netilas lulav. You're going and you're making your nanuim, and you look and you realize I have no aravas. I'm missing my aravas. Oh, I have my aravas, my fresh aravas. They're right here in my lulav bag. They're right here, and I don't have to be mafsik. Grab the new aravas, stick them in the lulav, but you got to make a bracha on the aravas. Make Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvayis of Sivanu al netilas arava. So what's the Mishnah Berurah saying? The Mishnah Berurah is saying that the bracha that you made, Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvayis of Sivanu al netilas lulav, that bracha was chal, and it covered the lulav, it covered the hadasim, it covered the esrig. The problem is that the aravas are short a bracha. The bracha did not go on the aravas. So when you stick in the new aravas, now you got to make a bracha Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvayis of Sivanu al netilas arava. Now, what's behind this? We learned in the previous shiur, we learned in Sif Yud Beis, earlier on in Sif Yud Beis, we learned, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the shiur, that the arba minim are ma'akvin zeh ezeh. You can't be yotze the mitzvah with less than all 4 minim. And therefore, if you only have 3 minim, if you only have, like in our case right now, you only have a lulav, hadasim, and an esrig, you cannot make a bracha. Because it's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is daled minim. So you can't make a bracha on a lulav, hadasim, and esrig. You take the lulav and the hadasim and the esrig as a zecher ba'alma, but you can't make a bracha. Over here in our case, you had a lulav, hadasim, and an esrig, and you made a bracha, and the Mishnah Berurah is saying, and that bracha is chal. Why? Why? We learned at the beginning of Sif Yud Beis, you can't make a bracha. The answer is, the reason it's chal is because this is not called that you didn't have all four minim. You do have all four minim. This is more like the case when you had all four minim in front of you on the table, and you made a bracha of al netilas lulav to cover all four minim, and you picked them up one at a time. That does work. So again, we had two halachas in the beginning of Sif Yud Beis. One is, you cannot make a bracha if you do not have all four of the minim. And if you made a bracha, it would be a bracha of HaTorah. It's not a valid bracha, and it's not an effective bracha. So in order to make a bracha and for the bracha to be chal, you have to have all four minim. In our case, you have all four minim. You have the lulav, the hadassim, and the esrig. They're in your hand. You have two aravas in your lulav case. So we're not going to negate the bracha that you made. This is enough that's considered that you had all four minim, that the bracha could be chal. And since the bracha is chal, it covers the lulav, the hadassim, and the esrig. But wait a second. If we're going to compare it to the case where all the four minim were on the table in front of you, so then why doesn't it cover the aravas? Let the bracha cover the aravas that were in the lulav bag also. Why are we saying that you need a new bracha now of al netilas arava? Right? Again, if we're discounting the fact that the aravas are in the lulav bag, then you made a bracha on only three minim, and then that bracha should be negated. That bracha should be a bracha of HaTorah. It's not a good bracha. But you're telling me it is a good bracha, because it does cover the lulav, the hadassim, and the esrig. So that means that you're comparing it to the case where all four minim are on the table. If all four minim are on the table, then the bracha of al netilas lulav should cover all four minim. So it should cover the ones that are in the lulav bag. Why do I have to make another bracha of al netilas lulav? The answer is, it seems, because when you had all four minim on the table in front of you, and your intention was, I'm going to be mekayim the mitzvah by picking up the lulav and then picking up the hadassim and then picking up the aravas and then picking up the esrig. In that case, you had das. And remember, we said you have to have clear, specific das, that the bracha of al netilas lulav is going on all four of these minim. But here in this case, where you are holding lulav, hadassim, and esrig in your hands, and you thought that you were also holding aravas in your hand, that's what you thought. You didn't realize that you're only holding three minim. You thought you're holding all four. So then when you made the bracha of al netilas lulav, your intent was, it's going on the daled minim that are in my hand. You didn't have das on the aravas that are in the bag. So the bracha cannot go on the ones that are in the bag. But it's still not a bracha of HaTorah because lamaisa it's there. And you could get it without making a hefsek. So this is kind of like a gray area. It's kind of like in the middle. It's not exactly like the case where you didn't have all four minim, and it's not exactly like the case that you had all four minim that they were all in front of you. It's enough that you had all four minim, since you just got to go into the bag and get it and stick it in without making a hefsek, that the bracha works on the three minim that you have in your hand. But you still need to make a new bracha because your das wasn't on that. And the Mefarshim, what they compare this to is somebody who makes a bracha on a fruit. Somebody has a bowl of oranges in front of him, a bowl of peeled clementines in front of him. And he picks one up and he has, das, I'm going to eat this clementine. And he makes a berei priya eitz. And before he could take a bite, he drops it and it falls into a filthy puddle. And now it's moas and he can't eat it anymore. So he says, no problem, there's a whole bowl of clementines here. I'll pick up another clementine and I'll eat it. The halacha is you need a new bracha. Why? Because your das was on the one that you were holding. And the one that you were holding fell, and it's moas, and you can't eat it anymore. You want to eat a different one, even though it's in front of you, you got to make a new bracha. The bracha didn't go on that one. So too over here. The aravas that are in the bag, the bracha didn't go on the aravas that are in the bag. Okay, a little complex, but that's pshat. Now, that's, says the Mishnah Berurah, what the halacha is, if you have two aravas that are sitting in your bag, that you could get without making a hefsek and quickly stick them into the lulav. But let's say, continues the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Nun Vav Kuf Chav Vav Amid Aleph, right by the Ois Cotton Ayin Hey for the Sha'ar Tzion. Avalim Loy Hayaloi Bebeisai Arava Acheres. But let's say you don't have Aravas. So now you made a berachah on Netilas Lulav. Now you realize you have no Aravas, and you don't have Aravas in the house. Oy Hadas Acher, or you were missing the Hadasim, you don't have another Hadas. B'Shasha Birich. V'achak Achevi Uloi. And now somebody runs and brings you new Aravas, new Hadasim. Tzarech Levarech al Arbatam Yachad Pam Sheni al Netilas Lulav. Now you lost the bracha, the original bracha of al Netilas Lulav, because you only made a bracha on 3 minim. You didn't have 4 minim. This is the first halacha in Sif Yud Beis. If you don't have all 4 minim, you can't make a bracha, and if you do, it's a bracha of HaTorah. Kevin Shaloi Hayu Mitzuyin Az Esloi Babayis, since you didn't have the minim by you, Lo Yotza Gamal Lulav, the bracha is worthless. It doesn't go on the lulav. K'moshe Pasuk HaMechaber, like the Mechaber said at the beginning of Sif Yud Beis. If it's Tzarech Levarech Alav Pam Shniya, you need a whole new bracha. If Imhaya Zebiyam Rishon, Tzarech Levarech Gam Shechiyanu Pam Shenis, you would also need another Shechiyanu. Fascinating Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Now we go to Sif Yud Gimel. It's the last word of the Mechaber on the bottom line of Kuf Chav Hey Amid Beis. Im continues to Kuf Chav Vav Amid Aleph. Im chasa loy echad me'aminim. If you're missing one of the dalad minim, lo yikach min acher b'mekaymoy. You have a lulav, you have a dasim, and you have ravas. You don't have an esrig. Don't take an apple. Don't take an orange. You can't substitute a different fruit for the esrig. Now, obviously, you can't do that to be yotze the mitzvah. The Mechaber is not telling you, don't think you could be yotze the mitzvah with an orange. What the Mechaber is telling you is, I told you in Sif Yud Beis that if you only have 3 minim, you should take the 3 minim without a bracha as a zecher to the mitzvah, so the mitzvah shouldn't be forgotten. Comes along somebody, he says, I have even a better idea. The mitzvah is dalad minim. And the missing min, the one we don't have, let's say, is the esrig. The esrig is a citrus fruit. You know what? Let's take a lemon. Let's take a very nice lemon, and we'll hold that together with the lulav bundle as a zecher to the mitzvah of the dalad minim. We won't make a bracha, but at least this way, we have all 4 minim, and we have a nice yellow citrus fruit. Maybe that's an idea. Says the Mechaber, no, do not substitute a different min for the min that you're missing. Says the Mishnah Berurah cutting on Zion lo yikach min acher. Why? If you're going to use a lemon 1 year, we're afraid you're going to come to use a lemon another year. But in the eye, so why don't you say the same thing? If you're missing one of the minim, you told me I should take 3 minim as a zecher. Maybe next year I'm going to think that you could be yotze the mitzvah with 3 minim. Why isn't that a problem? Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. Lo yavayu litais lihistapik b'shana haba b'shloisha minim. No one's going to make a mistake and think the following year that they could be yotze the mitzvah with 3 minim. Da'akol yoidim shetzarach arba minim. Everybody knows that you need dalad minim in order to be yotze the mitzvah. Okay, Sif Yud Daled. Lo yosef min acher al arbas haminim. You can't add another min to the 4 minim, mishum bal taisif, because to do so, you would be over on the lav of bal taisif. The Torah Dirshu says that you should take 4 minim. You're taking 5, that's an isser of bal taisif. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katnum Ches Lo Yosef min Acher, Ayin Bebeis Yosef, the Daitoi, the Afilu of Eina Machave Behed Yilashei Mitzvah Lulav Gam Kein Aser. This is also even if you're not doing it L'Shei Mitzvah, right? So you pick up the lulav bundle together with the esrog, together with an apple, and you're not doing it to be yotze the mitzvah. Says the Beis Yosef that even that would be an isser of Baal Tosef. V'ayin b'bir halacha. There's a very nice yesodistic bir halacha here that discusses yesodis in Baal Tosef. Ayin sham tivra maskel b'shum Baal Tosef. Sif tesvav, says the Mechaber. Lo yitel yoser milulav echad ve'esrig echad. You should not take more than 1 lulav or 1 esrig. Don't go ahead and be a wise guy and take three lulavim. You know, I'll take a dairy and a this and a that, and maybe I'll take 4 esrogim at one time, a yanava and a chazanish, and a this and a that. You know, it says the Mechaber, no. Lo yitel yoser milulav echad. Do not take more than 1 lulav, ve'esrig echad, and 1 esrig. Says the Mishnah Berurah cutting on test. Lo yitel yoser milulav echad ve'esrig echad. Why? Tiksiv, because the pasuk says, "Ulakachtem lachem b'yom harishon pre-eitz hadar. That's singular, one esrig. Mashma echad v'lo shnayim, one, not two. V'hu adin l'lulav. The same halacha applies to the lulav. Tiksiv kapois tamarim chaser vav, dahainu echad. Again, it's the singular kapois tamarim. That's one lulav. V'yeshayimrim, some say, da'ivra bazeh gamal bal toisif, that if you were to take more than one lulav or more than one esrig, it would actually be an isser of bal toisif. Now we're going to stop the Mishnah Berurah over here for a minute, and let's go back into the Mechaber. Continues the Mechaber. That's as far as the lulav and the esrig. Aval ba'arava v'hadas, but when it comes to the aravas and the hadasim, moisif ba'kam ashiyirtze, the Mechaber says you can add as much as you want. You want to take 15 hadasim, take 15 hadasim, says the Mechaber. However, the yesh misha paisa lahanyach hadash shoyte belulav. There are those that say that you should not insert a hadash shoyte. We said a hadash shoyte is the hadas that does, it's not mishulish. It doesn't have 3 leaves on every level, in every cane. Instead, it has multiple, as let's say 5, 6, 7 leaves. That's called a hadash shoyte. So there are those that say you cannot add a hadash shoyte, noisef al hashloisha badin avos, in addition to the 3 regular hadasim, because they say that the hadash shoyte is a different min. It's a different species. So now it's like you're taking 5 minim instead of 4 minim. V'yesh matirin, but there are those that are matir. Now let's go back into the Mishnah Berurah's Kat Nun Tes. We're a few lines into the Mishnah Berurah, where the Mishnah Berurah says, Aval ba'arava, when it comes to the hadasim and the aravas, we said that the lulav and the esrig, you cannot take more than one. Aval ba'arava leinitan b'Torah kitzva. Over there, the Torah Kedosha didn't give a number. It says, Arvei Nachal. Arvei Nachal is a Lashon Rabim. But we don't know how many. Is there a difference between 2 and 500? Doesn't say. This that we say that you need 2 in order to be yotze the mitzvah, that means that it's a minimum. But at a minimum, you need 2. Why? Because if the Torah Kedosha uses a lashon rabim, so that means we need at least 2. If it's 1, it's singular, it's not rabim. Torah uses a lashon rabim. So you need at least 2. But who says you can't use more than 2? Aval tvei, I get chopper dummy. But more than 2 is also okay. V'hu adin b'hadas. So too by the hadasim. Tiksiv anaf eitz avos, which is also singular, which is also plural. Gam ken yochel lohisif kama sheyirtze. You can add as many as you want. We say 3. Al pi kabbalah, but you want to add more, you can add more. However, let's go to the end of the Mechaber, where the Mechaber says, "V'hamedaktikim eina moisifim al shtei aravos u'shloisha hadasim avos." The medaktikim b'mitzvahs, they stick to what we know. They stick to the minig that we have, which is 2 aravos and 3 hadasim, and they do not add. Ois Katan Samach, says the Mishnah Berurah, there are those that say that you cannot add a hadash shoyte to the 3 hadasim. Taimam, their reasoning is to whom in acher, because it's considered a different species. Va'asar kanal b'sif yudalid, and that would be asar because it's forbidden to add another species. Vayesh betirin sfira lahu dalav min acheru. Those that are matir the addition of a hadash shoyte, they hold that it's not a min acher. The hagodli ba'arugachas u'ba'anafachas. Sometimes we find a hadash shoyte growing on the same bush as the regular hadasim. Very hard to call it a different min. Ela shatar pasalatu. It's puzzle. You can't use it, but you can't use it to be yotze the mitzvah. But if you have 3 kosher hadasim and now you want to add a hadash shoyte to it for noi, so there are those that say that that's mutter. V'ayla el b'sibit tafresh b'em vav ezo nikra hadash shoyte. Umin anachain lachshav lechatchila she'ena oigdon l'shem mitzvah. The Mishnah Berurah says if you are going to add in, so you should lechatchila, you should have in mind that you're not putting it in there for the mitzvah. Elalonoi ba'alma, it's only there for his style of fun of the mitzvahs. V'after there, Yishayna Sfir la da'aflanoi asa lechatchila la'agdan. The opinion that holds that it's that a hadash shoyte is a different min, this won't help, because even if you're doing it for noi, it would be aser harbe poiskim ein severin kain. Okay, this brings us to the end of a very fascinating, very interesting Siman Taf Reish Nun Aleph, and Mir Hashem will continue next time with Siman Taf Reish Nun Beis, the Zman Netilas Lulav. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan on Gans Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe Shalom should send Yeshua's, Refuah's, Parnasset, Sheduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the Bias Kal Tzedek, the Meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.